Number 3. Roxanne Peters. In December 2015, Roxanne Peters was 32 years old and she lived in Capabala, Queensland, Australia. She worked as a pharmacist assistant. She was also the mother of a daughter. On December 4, 2015, 51-year-old Grant Jason Kazar broke into her home. He demanded that she make him some methamphetamine. At the time, Peters was addicted to drugs. Days earlier, Kazar had raped her. In addition to demanding that she make drugs for him, he also demanded that Peters have sex with him. Peters refused. Kazar then threatened to harm her daughter. Peters said that she went into the kitchen and grabbed a knife. Kazar followed her into the kitchen and grabbed her. She then unleashed her fury on Kazar by stabbing him. As she stabbed him, she repeatedly said, quote, "You do not rape me," unquote. Peters stabbed him 61 times, including at the base of the penis. The stab wound to the heart was fatal. After killing her rapist, Peters called several people and asked them to help her move the body, but everyone turned her down. So Peters got a rope and tied it around Cesar's neck. She tied the other end of the rope to her car. She then started driving while dragging Cesar's dead body behind her. She drove for several miles, including past the police station. Peters then pulled onto a semi-rural road. She then rolled Kazar's body into the ditch. His body was found the next day and Peters was arrested. 3 years later, in October 2018, 35-year-old Roxanne Peters pleaded guilty to manslaughter and interfering with a corpse. The judge said that some of her actions were understandable, especially after he threatened her daughter. He said that Peters should have called the emergency line after stabbing Kazar, instead of dragging his body behind her car and dumping it in a ditch. Peters was sentenced to 10.5 years in prison. With time served, she was eligible for parole in June 2002, which was less than 2 years away. Roxanne Peters' current status and whereabouts are unknown. Number 2. Stacy Ray Peterson. On March 16, 1988, the police in Price, Utah, were called to a local rundown hotel. The room of 30-year-old Gary Webb had been robbed. The police discovered that Webb had been missing for nearly 2 weeks. It turned out that Webb was an informant with the police department. The detectives who went to Webb's room thought that someone might have possibly discovered he was an informant and killed him. So they began an investigation into his disappearance. They learned that checks that belonged to Webb had been cashed after he went missing. They were deposited into the bank accounts of two men, 20-year-old Stacy Ray Peterson and 23-year-old James D. Evans. The police questioned people who were living at the hotel and showed them photos of Peterson and Evans. They said they were the men who robbed the hotel room. The police talked to associates of Peterson and Evans. One of them said that Evans and Peterson had traded the TV from the hotel room for some marijuana. The police arrested Peterson and Evans for theft. It's unclear if either man confessed or if one of their friends said something, but the police found 30-year-old Gary Webb's body buried in a shallow grave near Horse Canyon, just outside of Price. He had been shot 3 times in the head with a shotgun and multiple times with a handgun. Stacy Peterson and James Evans were charged with murder. Both men took a plea deal and pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. At their sentencing hearing, Peterson explained why he had killed Webb. He said that 6 weeks earlier he had been hanging out at Webb's home. They were drinking beer. Suddenly he felt ill and he went to the washroom. He then felt like he was going to pass out and he managed to make it to Webb's bed. He said that when he woke up, he was tied to the bed and naked from the waist down. He said there was a pain in his rectum. He said that Webb was standing over him and he was naked. Peterson was able to free himself and he went home. Peterson did not think that the police would take any action. He said that months earlier he had told the police that Webb had bragged about raping underage boys. Peterson said that the police told him they knew Webb was openly gay and was involved in drugs, so they were monitoring him. Peterson felt that the only thing he could do was kill his rapist. James Evans admitted he did not have a good reason for killing Webb. He said he lacked good judgment and, quote, "If something was going on, I wanted to be there," unquote. Evans said that they lured Webb to Horse Canyon. He said that Webb didn't beg for his life, but he knew what was happening. Peterson shot him 3 times in the head with a shotgun. Evans then got a .22 caliber handgun from his car and shot at him 6 to 12 times. Then they buried him in the shallow grave. Both Peterson and Evans were sentenced to 5 years to life in prison. At the time, it meant they had to serve a minimum of 10 years of prison. According to the Utah Department of Corrections, at the time of this recording, 57-year-old Stacy Peterson is on parole. It's unknown when he was released. James Evans is not listed in the Department of Corrections, so his current status is unknown. If he's alive, he's 60 years old. Number 1. Norma Patricia Esparza. In October 2012, 39-year-old Norma Esparza, went by her middle name, Patricia, was a professor of psychology at Webster University in Geneva, Switzerland. She was also the deputy head of the university's psychology department and a consultant for the World Health Organization. She specialized in helping abused children. Esparza was born in Mexico, and her family moved to California when she was young. She claimed her father was physically abusive to her mother, and he started sexually abusing her when she was just 5 years old. She did her undergraduate in psychology at Pomona College in Claremont, California. She then went on to earn a master's and doctorate degrees in clinical psychology from DePaul University in Chicago, Illinois. Esparza was also married and had a 4-year-old daughter. Then, in October 2013, 39-year-old Patricia Esparza had to go to St. Louis, Missouri for a conference. The police had placed her on a Homeland Security watch list, so they were notified about her trip. She was arrested during a layover at an airport in Boston, Massachusetts, for murder. 18 years earlier, in the spring of 1995, 21-year-old Patricia Esparza was an undergraduate student at Pomona College in Claremont. In April 1995, the police contacted Esparza, and she came to the police station for an interview. They questioned her about how she knew 24-year-old Gonzalo Ramirez. They did not tell Esparza why they were questioning her, and she did not ask. Ramirez was the father of 2 daughters. His dead body was found lying near a road in Irvine, California on April 16, 1995. It was wrapped in blue towels. Ramirez's death had been brutal. There were clear signs of torture. He had 2 cracks in his skull. He had also been hacked a dozen times with something like a meat cleaver or a machete. 2 of his fingers were nearly severed. Ramirez had been kidnapped hours earlier after leaving a bar. Ramirez was driving and his friend was a passenger in the car. About a mile from the bar, Ramirez was rear-ended by someone driving a white Chevrolet Astro van. Ramirez stopped his car and got out to talk to the driver. Suddenly, several men got out of the van and attacked Ramirez. They threw him in the back of the white van. Ramirez's friend ran from the car and alerted the police. The police had no suspects in the murder and they were looking for leads. They found Esparza's phone number written on a phone bill in Rodriguez's home. Esparza told the police she met Rodriguez at a bar about 3 weeks before his murder and she gave him her phone number. The next morning, he called her and invited her to go out for breakfast with him, his sister, and a friend. She went to breakfast, and then Ramirez drove her home to her dormitory. She said that Ramirez came to her dorm room for a drink of water. When they got into the dorm room, he said he wanted to have sex. She said no. A doctor and a nurse examined Esparza. Esparza said that Ramirez then raped her. Esparza was asked if she reported the rape. She said she did not report the rape to the police, but the next day she did go to the campus health clinic. She said she told the nurse about the rape. The police followed up and a report was filed. A doctor and a nurse examined Esparza. The report said that Esparza said she had unprotected sex and she wanted a morning after pill. The report contained no mention of a sexual assault. Esparza was asked if she told anyone about the rape. She said she told her former boyfriend, Gianni Van. She said that Van was angry when he learned she had been raped, but she claimed that Van didn't harm Ramirez. She didn't tell Van any information about Ramirez, so he had no way to find him. The police talked to Gianni Van, and he claimed he knew nothing about the murder. Van was asked if he owned a white van, and he said he didn't. But the police knew he did. A white Chevrolet Astro was registered in his name. When Van was confronted, he explained that the van was registered in his name, but he didn't drive it. Instead, it was used by his good friend, Cody Tran, for Cody's transmission shop. The police managed to get a search warrant for the transmission shop. The van was parked inside the shop. They found blue towel dispensers that held towels that were similar to the ones wrapped around Ramirez's body. In the office, they found a drop of blood. At the time, DNA testing wasn't very sophisticated, and the only thing they knew for sure was that the victim could not be excluded as the source of the blood. The police believe that Van was angry that his former girlfriend was raped, so he got revenge. They also thought it was possible that the rape didn't happen, and Van was angry that his ex-girlfriend slept with someone else, so he killed him. A year after the murder, in March 1996, the police arrested Gianni Van. Then, they learned that about a month after the murder, Esparza and Van got married. That meant that Esparza couldn't be compelled to testify against Van. The case against Van was circumstantial. Esparza was the only connection between Van and Ramirez, so the police decided to drop the charges against Van. The case then went cold. Esparza continued her education and earned her PhD. She split up with Van and started dating Jorge Mencia. In 2001, Mencia proposed. Esparza couldn't marry him because she was still married to Van. For 3 years, through a lawyer, they negotiated with Van for a divorce. It was finally granted, and Esparza and Mencia got married. Then they moved to France. In 2010, the Santa Ana police reopened the investigation into Gonzalo Rodriguez's murder. They requested an interview with Esparza, but she declined through her lawyer. In 2010, the Santa Ana police reopened the investigation into Gonzalo Ramirez's murder. She said that Esparza went with Van and 2 of his friends to the bar where she initially met Ramirez, and Ramirez was there that night, and she pointed him out to Van. The police were shocked. They had never considered the possibility that Esparza was involved in the murder. She had repeatedly told them she knew nothing about the murder. The police had the blood draw found in the transmission shop tested for DNA. It belonged to Gonzalo Ramirez. In July 2012, the police went to serve a search warrant on 44-year-old Cody Tran. Cody owned the transmission shop where the blood drop was found. Cody barricaded himself in the home of his estranged wife, Diane Tran, and got into a shootout with the police. He ended up fatally shooting himself. After Esparza was arrested, she was denied bail and remained in jail. She spent 2 months in jail, then she agreed to tell the police what happened on the night Gonzalo Ramirez was murdered. She said she had not told anyone about the rape except for the nurse. Then Van stopped by her room and she confided in him. Van demanded that she go to the bar with him and point him out. She went to the bar with Van, his friend Cody Tran, Cody's wife Diane Tran, and their friend Shannon Grease. Esparza said she thought that Van was going to confront Rodriguez. At worst, she thought he might rough him up, but she never thought he would kill him. Esparza admitted she was in the van when it rear-ended Ramirez's car. Esparza said that after the kidnapping, she was dropped off at a bar. She was later brought to the transmission shop. Ramirez was chained up and bleeding, but he was still alive. She said she stayed for a short time and then left. She did not see the actual murder. She said she had no idea they were going to kill him and she did not do anything wrong. The police were suspicious of her story. Esparza was asked if she was innocent. Why did she tell the police that Van and his friends had killed Ramirez? Instead, she had repeatedly lied to the police. Esparza said that she was terrified of Van and his friends. She believed she was taken to see Ramirez at the shop after he was tortured as a warning to keep quiet. But if she was so afraid of Van, who she knew tortured and killed a man, then why did she marry him a month after the murder? She said it was a sham wedding that she had been forced into because she wouldn't have to testify against Van. The police then arrested Gianni Van, Diane Tran, and Shannon Grease. The district attorney offered Esparza a plea deal. She could plead guilty to voluntary manslaughter and receive a 3-year prison sentence. Esparza initially agreed to the plea deal and she was released on bond. Just before Esparza was going to plead guilty, she, along with her husband and 4-year-old daughter, held a press conference. Esparza said she was not only innocent, but she was a rape victim who was further being abused by the judicial system by charging her with a murder she did not commit. She never felt that she was morally responsible for the murder. The press conference made headlines worldwide. Many people were supportive of Esparza and believed her. The police talked to Diane Tran, who was present during the crime. Her estranged husband, Cody Tran, owned the transmission shop where Rodriguez was tortured. Diane said that Esparza was not innocent. She said that Esparza knew that Van wanted to kill Ramirez. Diane said that Esparza helped plan the murder. When Esparza found out that Diane was going to testify against her, she agreed to testify against Van in exchange for pleading guilty to voluntary manslaughter and being sentenced to 6 years of prison. In January 2016, Diane Tran pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter and she was sentenced to 4 years of prison. Shannon Grease pleaded guilty to murder and he was sentenced to 25 years to life. Gianni Van's trial took place in April 2016. His lawyer contended that Van was not the mastermind. He said that Esparza manipulated Van into killing Rodriguez for revenge. The defense lawyer pointed out that Esparza was a very smart woman who was studying psychology at the time of the murder. The lawyer also told the jury that in 1995 and 1996, Esparza lied repeatedly to the police about the murder. In 1997, 1998, and 2010, after she split up with Van, she refused to talk to the police. Van's attorney also said that there was no evidence that the rape even happened, and that Esparza not only killed Ramirez, but she also dragged his name through the mud. Gianni Van was found guilty after the jury deliberated for 6 hours. He was sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole. At the time of this recording, 54-year-old Shannon Greaves is serving a sentence at the Mule Creek State Prison in Yonge, California. He's eligible for parole in February 2027. 55-year-old Keone Van is currently incarcerated at the Substance Abuse Treatment Facility in State Prison, Cochrane. If Diane Tran served her entire sentence, she would have been released in 2020. If Patricia Esparza served all 6 years of her sentence, she would have been released in 2022. Her current whereabouts are unknown. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, we'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. Also, don't forget to watch our shorts on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Once again, thank you for watching.